All right, so my thing talks in Spanish too. Sorry, in case you didn't catch that. Grabada means it's grabando. All right. Well,
But actually, I don't speak Spanish. I'm sorry. I just have friends who speak Spanish and they know how to pronounce my name.
hey, no worries. Don't worry. There's still time too for everybody. You can always learn
Yes.
more. But always, I
Sure.
highly recommend. I can teach you a lot of the bad words if you want to. That'll be another workshop. How to swear in Espanol. You'll make a lot of good friends. All right, y'all. So let's check this out. So you know what I want to do is, since we didn't have folks here last time, is to do a little bit of the welcome. So to welcome y'all again for this photo voice of, I say event, but really it's more of a workshop, and hopefully to introduce you all some methods to think about your own photography as a poetic means in and of itself, but then also thinking of it as a kind of methodology to be able to make stuff, and hopefully to be able to make some poems. But really, uh, the way I like to think of it though is a kind of socially engaged kind of artwork, and that has more to do with, I guess, my own sense of aesthetics. But when this photo voice stuff really comes, it comes from a critical education, or also like critical pedagogy, using photography to get students who may be not compelled to write but are very much saturated in a visual culture to go and take photography or use, well, these days, cell phones to be able to do stuff, to be able to write about, and also to testify largely visually, but then also to create captions. And in these captions encompass whatever they're really writing about, whatever they're taking photographs of. But for us, since we're writers and we're poets, is where we can come in to get really descriptive and to really turn on that poetic sense of using photography to really dig down what those captions really are. Because I feel like in this photo voice stuff, that kind of gets short shifted. That said, the most important thing though is then to have a kind of critical discussion among other people. And so we're kind of doing a little bit. I'm trying to introduce y'all to a little bit of the photo voice stuff, and then hopefully give y'all some ideas about the history of it, ways it might engage whatever, wherever you are, and how you might be able to engage or not bring any of it. And then lastly is hopefully talk about your own pictures together. And once you model that discussion, it'll give you ideas, whether in your own classroom as teachers or instructors, or in your own kind of poetic practice, how you can encompass well, photography into your work, and hopefully more work into your photography on that end too. So that's that for the class. And then now I let y'all talk a little bit. So why don't we go around? Y'all just introduce yourselves if you wouldn't mind. Oh, hold on. Wait, I got to type what I'm going to ask you to do. Hey, oh yeah, you guys are already in the chat. Thank you. Sorry. I'm a mess, y'all. Hold on. Okay, intro. And I also type and speak at the same time. So I'm sorry if that's annoying. Um, all right, intro. So, doop, your name. I need my notes. I'm nothing without my notes here. Name. Where from? It's kind of wobbly. I'm sorry. I'm typing on a stack of books on top of a bed. What a world. All right, name, where you're from, and your interest in this workshop. So, easy way to remember, I hope, just your name, where you are, where you're from, maybe where you are as well, if you're not where you're from, and then your interest in this workshop. So, Mariana, would you mind leading us off?
Sure. My name is Mariana Tomasz Savage. And people usually say Tomas Savage, which is kind of funny, but yeah, it works either way. Um, I am from Croatia. I was born and raised there. I came to this country as a refugee in 97. And currently I live on an island outside of Seattle. It says in my name because I use Zoom for other things. They ask you to put in where you're located. So I'm located on Bainbridge Island. And my interest in the workshop, quite honestly, I saw the post on your Instagram, Stephen, and I thought, oh, this is something I am very curious about. I I don't know exactly what it means, but I feel like it's a good way it's something that I would like to learn.
Cool.
So that's why I'm here.
Great, great. So, and you also are interested in, like, you write poetry as well. You're a writer too.
Yes, I started writing poetry when I was very young. Actually, I was a poet laureate in Croatia at the age of 18.
What? Check you out.
So that was kind of cool. It made my dad really proud. He loved it because my dad was a poet too. And when the war started and all kinds of things started happening, I sort of stopped writing. and came back to it in around 2005, and then been since then. Then I had a really prolific period, and now not so much. I think I'm struggling between using my language that I don't know anymore because it's so different after 20 years, and using English that is also not entirely my language, and struggling between languages. And Yeah, so
Cool.
that's where
Yeah.
I'm at.
Well, maybe like photography in some way might be a bridge to help you sort of triangulate that or negotiate that. That's super fast in that journey as well. Pretty cool. There's a migration of poetry that goes along with you too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dudrick, what about you, my friend? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey y'all, I am so I'm from North Georgia, but I live in New York City now. I am a school teacher in Harlem. I teach literature and sometimes creative writing, depending on what the schedule allows and what's necessary. Um, I am currently an MFA student at City College uh, for poetry, but I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I collect film cameras. I primarily use film still. Um, I have a couple books of poetry, some comic books. I basically try everything because part of my artistic philosophy is that the art is in my experience of making it. So it's for me and for everyone. There's a trade-off there. So yeah, I'm looking for, I think, some inspiration that I can give to my kids, whether or not I get to teach creative writing this year, ways to fold in their narratives of their home and their space into the literature that we work with and the assignments that I'm able to give. So places to cross that over, and then just my general philosophy as a teacher is that my job is to make kids critical consumers of culture. So in working with images, I believe that I'll be able to help them read propaganda and advertisement and TV and cartoons and everything from the most mundane to the most serious. So that's my goal.
Very cool. I was like thinking, if you were to, how would I do this? Whatever way your pedagogy would frame so your students could speak about their aesthetics the way that you speak about it, I think that's a good way to think about how you guide your pedagogy. So I think you're going to have a lot to really start thinking about for your class. But hold on, first thing I can ask you, what part, we say North Georgia, like where are you talking about, my friend? You're giving me a region. Well, where are you from?
I'm from Ellijay, Georgia, the town that Deliverance is written about, and about
Is that near a place called Carnesville?
Carnesville.
I think it's
No,
near
I
Georgia.
don't know where Carnesville is.
Or like Athens in that area somewhere?
Oh, Athens. Yeah, Athens is about a 3-hour ride from me. I drove over there once to get a sandwich.
You're like the deep kind of Bible Belt place, right?
Yeah, so it's definitely Bible Belty where I'm from. Yeah, so my LJ is in Gilmer County, which is an agro-tourism area. So it's like a lot of farms that have been turned into tourist traps.
I think
And
yeah.
and then in addition to that, most of it is national forest.
Okay.
So it's a pretty cool place, but yeah, it's very intense in its religiosity,
Sure.
Which is like I grew up with both of my grandparents as Sunday school teachers, but my parents is kind of religiously indifferent. So
Yeah.
it was definitely something I needed to get away from.
No, I got
But,
you.
yeah.
So I didn't want to push on it because I traveled around there. I used to live around that area, and I was like, "Oh, North Georgia, hold on."
Did you live? You lived around Athens?
I used to live in I was in this program called AmeriCorps. We traveled all throughout the South, and so
Yep.
we were.
Wait, were you in NCCC?
Yeah, I did NCCC.
Me too, in the South.
I did
in
that
the
one.
Southeast region.
And Charleston, where I was.
That's where I was. Wait, when were you there?
Class X. That means 10. I was in class 10. I was like,
I think I was in class 8.
all right, we were around the same time. Almost.
I was there too. I'm losing track of time.
Yeah.
I think it was 2001. It was right after 9/11. So it's 2001, 2002.
Program, but so I was asking about, we were around North Georgia. That's why I was like, well, the other thing I was going to ask you about this is because a lot of this stuff too, and actually this goes to you for Mariana and Lauren too, is like you really start thinking about where you're from, like you said about why you got to leave. And this kind of photo voice stuff can really get you to start thinking about your own background. I know, like how you said, you do stuff for yourself and it may speak for others, but some of this stuff is also thinking about our social identity, which might be, that place where you're from, and really start reflecting on that. It's kind of like a documentary poetics using the camera. So that's why I wasn't very specific about where you're from, because I'm back in my hometown right now. I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, another story. Anyway, well, thanks for sharing, my friend. Lauren, your turn, buddy.
So that's so funny. I'm sorry I interjected. I never knew people who did NCCC, and that region got closed. So it's
I got the whole Navy base.
Yeah, they closed the whole region. We were on the Naval base too. Yeah. Anyway, so a couple years earlier, I'm originally from Los Angeles, but I haven't lived there in 20 years. I relocated. So I've lived a lot of places in between. I relocated from Pittsburgh to East Lansing, Michigan during the pandemic, which kind of affects why I'm photographing the way I'm photographing. Because I've only just started getting out within the last month that I've been fully vaccinated. So for the rest of the time, like my community is my apartment, basically. I don't have a community here yet. I'm just starting to figure out where I am and meet people in person. I'm a poet. I direct the Center for Poetry at Michigan State and teach in the Residential College in Arts and Humanities, which is all interdisciplinary. So I'm taking this class primarily to try to sort of find a sort of different way back into my practice as a poet, and that I was really interested in the visual sort of thinking, using more visuality, but it's also teaching in an interdisciplinary program. It's also giving me a lot of ideas for teaching.
So like, I wonder really quick, Lauren, do you have to put on any kind of events or programs because the students are actually living in the place where they're taking classes, right?
We've been doing it all virtually since I've been here, but in the future, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I could see like a photo voice, like photo exhibit that they all do, being like a really cool kind of project to bring people, especially if there's food, by the way. You always gotta have food, but something like that could be a really cool event if you can help organize that kind of stuff. But
yeah, it would be, yeah.
Good time. Well, anyway, y'all, we got a lot of stuff to talk about because I got notes, but I do have a couple of writing exercises for us to do. So last time I told folks, if you want to, I think it's kind of easier to write in a notebook. So if y'all got a pen and paper rather than typing, and let me give you some of the let me see what I call this. I don't want to call them rules, but let's call them practices. Practices for exercises. Okay, so these are, oh gosh, my head. I'm sorry about let me spell that again. Exercises. Oh my gosh. Okay, exercise. These are going to be timed. Actually, I'm just going to say these are timed with the music, because I'm going to play a song behind it. That way you have some writing music. I think the first one is about 4 minutes and the second one is a little bit shorter, but anyway, so you have the music, and the music will kind of give you an idea when to start winding down. And the rules are, the rules are no rules. Just write. That's it, just write. Don't worry about your spelling. Don't worry about editing. Just keep going. And if your mind starts to wander to something else, you just got to keep going. So don't edit yourself. Don't edit. Edit. Start to wander. Yeah. This is some of the stuff I remember reading. This author, Natalie Goldberg. I'm not sure if you ever read this book called like Wild Mind or Writing Down the Bones. And it was a lot of free writing. And really just building up notebooks of free writing, and a lot of writing as much shit and junk. You're going to write a lot of junk before you get to the gold, but before you get to the gold, you just have to write. It's like you learn how to play guitar or any kind of instrument, like violin, the trope of the kid that's learning how to play violin, it sounds like a dead cat, or a cat dying rather. But then after you keep practicing an hour a day for whatever, 10,000 hours, then all of a sudden you're like, whatever, Mozart, I guess. I think it's the same thing with writing, because it's an art form. You practice more with it. You do a lot of free writing. Sometimes good stuff comes out. You have it saved. You can come back and rearrange things. But really, to get proficient is probably the best thing you can do. And then hopefully have notebooks, and the notebooks you can always come back, especially with as you advance as a writer, you get back those old notebooks. Oh, good times, everybody. So anyway, so these are the rules. Just let your mind go whenever you see. So I'm going to actually arrange this because we're going to look at a couple of photographs. So I'm going to ask you to look at the photographs, and these are the time writings we're going to do with the photographs. So any questions about that, y'all? Does that make sense? All right, so I got to do a share screen thing. So I'm going to stop my video and make sure I do this correct. Oh my gosh, I know I'm going to mess this up. All right, hold on. I think this is it. Oh crap. Okay. All right. I think I got it. Okay. You should all hopefully see a picture of somebody out in open distance or something like that. Does that look right? Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. I know you do. All right. Okay. So I'm going to start the song, and then I'm going to just kind of let you all write, free write. I'm going to write with you as well. So I'm going to get my notebook out. And the song is this guy. His name is Brian Lopez. I Pray for Rain. I'll give you the link if you like it. It's a 2-song guy. I'm close to Arizona right now. So as you see, it's about 5 minutes long, a little bit over 5 minutes. So this is going to be a 5-minute exercise. So you might run out of ideas for this photograph. If you want to create your own narrative to the photograph, if you focus on the details, but I would recommend first just describe what you see. Just describe it looking all around, let your eyes wander, and try to use your poetic sensibility to find the details, those details that you think like quote unquote ordinary folks might not catch, for example, right? All right, so here we go. I played a song and here's a photograph. Here we go. Turn down a little bit.
Lord, I'm having such a hard time. Pray for rain and love you've given me is this here sunlight. damaged man happens, yet still you claim that I'm to stand up yet above the rest. I'm not so comfortable yet above the
Just making sure we're almost done. Sorry. Oops. Okay. I think that song's about done, because let me go ahead and close that way since I already made that weird. Okay. So we'll go one more time to an image, one last look, and I'm gonna get out of this screen really quick, everybody. And I'm gonna share a couple things with you. Let me first, here is that song, if you like him. I like this guy. Brian Lopez, Tucson musician. Writes something
Like somebody else, I don't know. I will think of the name later.
Yeah, there's a kind of a cool music scene in Tucson, like that band Calexico is probably the most famous one from there. But then it's a lot of like, because it's a border place, it's like kind of cowboy music too. So it's like,
Oh.
yeah. Well, anyway, and there's accordions. Freaking accordions, badass. Regardless, don't act like accordions are not cool. Weird Al Yankovic is badass. Or anyway, so the other thing is that image, and really easy, y'all, when you're doing stuff, especially with your classrooms. And Dr. I like how you're talking about one of the things I do, especially when we teach composition rhetoric, is rhetorical analysis. So I like to do rhetorical analysis of visual text, visual rhetoric in this sense, but also rhetorical analysis of advertisements. Can't miss. What I love to do especially is to find video advertisements in different languages and then present them to students. Some of these are really interesting. Some of these commercials for Pantene hair commercials in Thailand are like 8-minute full productions. And only at the very end do you actually find out that they're selling shampoo. There's like characters and romance interests and all kinds of shit. Cool stuff. And students are already saturated with all this stuff. They hate to think when they're being manipulated. Well, what do you do? Anyway, so anyways, Google Images, really useful for this kind of stuff. So if you want to use that with your classroom as well, this is where you can have like a gallery and you can look for stuff to do. It's kind of like what we did. I was looking for some stuff that had to do with landscape, and well, so what you come up with. So why don't we do this, everybody? We'll go around. First, we'll ask if anybody has a volunteer and read what we got. Then I have another exercise like this one with a different image for us to do. That'll lead us into something a little bit later on. So volunteer, anybody? It's all shy now. See how shy y'all now? See how, all right, Matt, go for it, buddy, please.
All right, let's see here. 10 layers run together, cardboard, construction paper cutouts, Matisse examining the brush. 3 houses in non-Euclidean geometry, one a skeleton stuck between known and unknown, building or collapsing. 7 other buildings, like a city perhaps, but too far away, too small to describe. Sun somewhere unaccountable, behind the gaze, but safely assuming there is only one, as there was only one yesterday. And one question, is she the subject? Is that her shadow?
Nice. All right, cool.
Cool.
Clapping for you, my friend. First off, y'all, any thoughts or comments for homeboy over here?
I love the sun reference. There is one sun, at least I don't know why, but that just jumped at me, and I was like, wow, that's Why did you think about that? I mean, that just really captured my interest.
Yeah, cool. Well, Lauren, what about you? Anything that popped out?
Wasn't there a Sonic play on sun? Wasn't there sun and then you said sun again? I didn't write it down, sorry.
Yeah.
Something jumped out at me, the sounds around sun.
Ledger, what are you playing with the words there? Sun. Sounds like it. I mean,
I don't think so. Sun. Oh, sun somewhere unaccountable.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. There was
Yeah.
some stuff about the shadow. That's why I was like, oh, there's some sun, shadow, like sun. I was like, all right.
I was trying to figure out if there was like a shadow on the closest dwelling, and I couldn't figure out if that was another person that was just in shadow or if it was the figure's shadow. And so then it made me think, well, the sun is in the image, you just can't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, well, and I'm like, if that kid is the sun. Like this is kind of like, well, hold on. So let me ask you, that like landscape, did it kind of look familiar to you? Does it look a little bit like northern Georgia is what I'm getting at?
Well, the shape of the hills do for sure, but like the lack of trees, I felt like it was like California because it like, but then the shape of the hut, I couldn't figure out where it was from.
But you could see like something like that, like doing like a photograph of where you're from, then maybe start diving into a project like that. Because I sound
definitely.
Sound like a lot of the themes could always already be in play there. So anyway, really cool. Well, all right. We got 2 more to go. All right, next 2. Volunteer. I'm just lay back like this. Just lay back in the cut.
Sure, I'll do it.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, don't be so shy now. We're all doing this together. And by the way, everybody in here is like writing badass stuff. You're all stars already. So anyway, let's go, my friend.
Okay. She walks these hills with a long black past. The weight she carries is the feeding. The shadows, they are fleeing. She calls my name as the years run away. Let me rest in the shadows that are fleeing, in the grasses that are swaying. She walks these hills with a long black past.
You were thinking in verse already.
Well, that's because I saw this image and I was like, the song that she walks these hills in the long black with a long black veil. I don't know if you know that song. It's an old song.
It actually is kind of a little bit of that song was written in a waltz, and the song I was playing was also kind of sounds a little bit like what you were following that rhythm as you're even saying it now.
Yeah,
so a lot of resonance there. Yeah, but you were writing basically kind of like strophes to this thing.
Something like that.
Yeah. So hold on. So we'll take us to this. So you had a song in your head, but the song was guiding what you were also seeing too, right?
Yes, it just reminded me of that song, and I thought, oh, and then I was wondering about the woman and why she has all this grain on her head.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I also like you ended the song with the way it began too, so that way we know you're winding down with the same kind of verse, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, hold on, y'all. So comments here from Mariana, y'all. I don't know, Lauren or Dudry, anything you want to say about?
I like the narrativizing, the constructing of the story out of it. I like that. Like, who is this woman? Where is she going? Presenting us with these questions, which help us stop. If your poem were the caption, it would cause, like, I imagine, like, what if your poem was the museum text beside the image? Yeah. Well, it would just cause us to go back and look. Every time you ask a question, we would have to go look again. And that creates its own kind of repetition and rhythmic cycle of returning to the image.
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely. That's why I think it would be really cool to have like a photo exhibit where you have like the accompanying poems. I'm like, there you go. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. And then of course, like ones that have like music, that might be a part of it too. So you could have like the song that inspires it. It would be like the third element, at least in Mariana's case. So Mariana, I wouldn't say like, if you were to expand this one, you should definitely bring in lyrics from that song too. And like try to weave them in. It seemed like it'd be a pretty cool thing. Anyway, Lauren, what about you? Any thoughts you got from Mariana?
I don't think I have that much to add. I know that the Johnny Cash version, that's what immediately came to
Oh,
mind. But your alteration of it was interesting. I think it's interesting in general how
cool.
the lyric, like the music you played, is sort of interacting with
Yeah.
the visuals and how people's work is
Sure.
coming out.
Well, actually, are you a musician as well? Do you play music or write songs? Mariana, sorry.
No, no, I wish,
Okay.
but no. Yeah.
I mean, because they're poets. They basically will write like ballads, different kind of forms. And some of it's really cool because like every tradition has their own sort of like musical tradition, or every culture has its own musical tradition. Usually like related culinarily, but like mixing and stuff. So I like what Dudrick said about narrative. And what's kind of cool about, and I think we're gonna wait for this one until next week, is we're doing individual photographs next time. But once you put accompanying photographs, that's when you start doing narrative. Once you have at least two to give a cause and effect or a sequence of events, and then you start doing some really cool that's like photo narrative, but also really the photo voice too. But get ready for next week, y'all. but anyway, I was talking about these musical traditions. In Mexico, there's one called the corrido, corrido, and it comes from Spain. And then it also tells stories of like tall tales, and they're always about like, well, usually Mexicans sticking to the gringos. Hey, we gotta have our songs too. Anyway, so a lot of them have narratives, but anyway, they're all the same kind of poems, and then people will write the poems, a songwriter who are not always musicians, and then they're put to music. And so there's usually that kind of synthesis. Hey, what's up, Dr. What are you gonna say, buddy?
Is the corrido, is that what Americo Paredes wrote so much about?
Probably is. It's like the tradition of like usually on the border. They're border ballads, and
Yeah.
they're usually in trios, sometimes with an accordion. They have typically they're like these days a lot of them have to do with narcos. So narco corridos, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy because some of these musicians get killed by like people just because the song they made and they got paid for. But these are the quote unquote outlaws, the border outlaws these days. Whatever. My family comes from the same state as Chapo Guzman, but we're not related. I don't think so. We ain't got the money, at least. Anyway, Lauren, your turn, buddy. What do you got, buddy?
I really don't know what I wrote. Graphed on the, can't read it. Again, shadow of hills and arc, crisscross shadows, dress in shadows, falls Argyle on wind strikes or wind seducer. A shadow of a woman is not a woman. Grass rising steeply, burnt by fortune and the winged ecstasy of us. Hard time, they sort of sound like the Lumineers, but not illuminated. How even the shadow of text is a wall of gray. Damage sounds so gorgeous with all the weights of grays. Gray, light, dark, dark ways, smooth as the trees are, dark drapes as over and moves on.
Right. Cool. Right on, my friend. All right. Cheers for all three of you now. So any thoughts for Lauren's work there? You're like me, Lauren. You start writing too fast, and like I know I'm bad. Like this time I try to go slow, but who knows? Anyway, any thoughts for Lauren, y'all?
Once you got going, there was a really great rhythm to it. I really loved the rhythm. It was, yeah. I just wanted you to keep going.
That word Argyle stood out to me. I really enjoyed its presence.
Yeah, I felt like you stumbled on it, Lauren. You're like Argyle. I'm like, of course, Argyle.
I'm gonna read my writing. I'm actually not sure that is what it says. But.
Oh, well,
it is now.
Let it stand. In fact, the title will be Argyle. Just kidding. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I felt like, yeah, once it probably is like that with your handwriting too. Like it started getting easier to read. Maybe that's when your reading of it too seemed like the rhythm picked up. So that sometimes happens with the free writing, y'all. It takes you a little bit of a while to get warmed up with your, well, put it this way. And that Natalie Goldberg book I mentioned before, her time writings, she challenges you to do 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15 minutes, and work your way up to 60 minutes nonstop. Like, I mean, I'm talking about like at a certain point, your hand's going to start to freaking hurt. But then you do develop a kind of tolerance to it. You learn also that you don't got to write within the lines. Like it's okay to write upside down across the page. Your lines can be this big. You don't have to follow that. And it actually makes it where you just keep writing and you get yourself into the mentality of getting into the zone, or she calls it wild mind. And she has a sort of a Buddhist mentality of a creative free space, maybe almost to the level of a kind of trance, if you want to think of it that way, but you just keep writing. Kind of cool. We only did it 5 minutes. So anyway, I'll do mine now. So any other comments for Lauren? Well, Argyle. All right. No rain, below a valley and hills, breathing, a boy in the distance running down the hill, his mother behind him, the wind from the west, her dress held at the helm with the right hand. Rows of grass swept and trees further south. Who lives in the houses spotting the hills? Her son advances further south at the foot of the hill, a creek. What's left of the water moves. She was there before, once before, when there were no houses in these hills, huesos, houses, sun on her neck. The boy calling, here, and she knows he was close. He called ahead when he knew he fell beyond her gaze, sunlight given between and on and on and on. The rain, not today. That one was at the very end of that song. It's like the rain, the rain, the rain. By the way, right now is monsoon season in Arizona, but there's no rain, so we're all like thinking about rain these days. Anyway, all right, y'all. So that really quick is also like a fun exercise y'all can do with students, and especially if you ask them, invite them to bring like photographs in. One thing I like to do with students too is ask them to bring a couple family photographs in, and then exchange them with other students in class. You kind of do like a pass around. And so anyway, we're going to work on a little bit something like that. All right. Well, we got time. Actually, I had one of these other exercises I was going to do. I'm just going to show you what the picture looks like. And we'll just talk about it really quick, see what you see, because I got a couple videos I want to share yet about photo voice. One of them kind of tug your heart a little bit, but it's kind of important for us to get an idea about why this stuff is so important. So first off, let me give you the link for this video, or excuse me, this image, which is right here. It was in the news a while back. And I'm giving you this one because, let me go ahead and share my screen. Looks like this image here. It was in the news a while back, but if you just take a look at it, take out some of the details you see there. Obviously, the photographer did a pretty cool job here of dividing the image, but I don't know, Dudrick, you're into this photography stuff. What are some of the things that stand out to you as a photographer or someone who looks at the visual stuff?
Well, he creates almost a diptych, so a 2-panel image by having the beam there.
Huh.
And then he is juxtaposing like a natural space, because we see all of the trees, although there are roofs there, it appears more natural to all of this concrete on the other side where the man is standing. And his casual stance is kind of implying the collapse of the building we see on fire or falling.
Yeah.
And then a lot of things, like while the railing is pointing away from that that half of the image with the catastrophe, the impending catastrophe, because it has forced perspective on the left side, making us look towards the blue door. We still feel compelled to move our eye left, as Westerners mostly. We want to read in that direction. So there's this tension in where our eye is being pulled, because the left side of the image is, or I'm sorry, the right side of the image is more flat.
Interesting. I think about that. That's pretty cool. Well, hold on. So, man, you gave us a lot here to work with, Edric. But I thought the first idea is you gave us like some space and natural. Wow, pretty cool. Well, hold on. Let me bring it back to maybe Marianne. Marianne, what are your first impressions or things you know? I mean, Dudrick gave us a lot of stuff to look at, but what are for you? What's this thing doing for you?
Makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us more.
Because and I'm thinking, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why is he standing there?
Yeah.
Why is the building on fire? It's just makes me feel like, I'm back in the war,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, oh, is this guy safe over there? Why
Yeah.
why is he just leaning back? I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, I agree. So hold on. So Mariana, on one hand, you're like, I think one thing that Drake was giving us was sort of like the formal properties and the staging of the photograph and sort of the elements of form. And you're starting to ask more questions about the social situation. Where are we? What time is this? Is this a time of war? What's going on, or what's the context of this photograph a little bit? And yeah, rightfully so. And put it this way, a building just collapsed in Florida and looking pretty bad, and this doesn't look so good here. So rightfully, I think this photo there's quite a contrast about it. Makes you feel uncomfortable because if you didn't see what's going on the right, you just saw the guy on the left, you're like, yeah, it's a regular old day. You're like, whoa, hey, hold on a minute. Hold on. So what about you, Lauren? What do you see? And thank you, Maria.
Yeah, I think I had a similar reaction. I was like, why is this guy not really upset? But then I'm just assuming he's not upset because of the way he's sort of lounging against the wall.
Yeah.
But we can't see his face. We don't really know.
Yeah.
But I think I was having a similar
Yeah.
feeling of discomfort.
It's an uncomfortable photo for all those various reasons. One way we could think about this photograph, if we read it like, let's say, with the Marxist analysis or a social analysis, one is that this is an individual, solitary on one side, but no doubt there is some kind of housing unit that's being consumed by fire. And then you might ask questions about housing and then in relationship to private property. And in this case, well, about properties that might have, whose properties are less safe and who is more expendable. And these days of climate change, that doesn't really fix anything. And what I'm just showing you here, these were housing projects in England several years ago. It's called Grenfell. I'm going to share something with you that you can check out on your own time, which I think you'll really enjoy. It's a poetry podcast. And this thing went up with some shoddy construction. And it was an immigrant neighborhood in London. And well, you can learn more about that as you will. And I'm going to give you a podcast if you're interested in learning more about this. This is going to be our second project for us to take a look at, but we're running out of time here. So what I want to do is actually share. I think I'm going to go with this other video. I'm sorry. Here. Oh, hold on. Come back here. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. This one is a photo voice project that was done with some cancer survivors. All right, y'all. This one is kind of sad, but it's also quite beautiful as well. And about why this photo voice stuff is so important as a methodology for people to think about social identity. And part of that is so folks sometimes who feel alone might not be alone, and also find a kind of way of building community and making them feel stronger about aspects of your social identity, in the sense that your identity is always social in nature, and it always changes with, well, you as you social, let's just say as your social circle adapts over time and you change over time. So anyway, let's talk a bit more about this photo voice. I'll talk too much. It's about 4 minutes long. And let's take a look at this one.
So our on-off button is up here on the top, so you can push that to turn it on. The camera, one of the cool things about the camera is the camera will stay on if you open the battery door.
I was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma when I was 4.
I was very young. I was actually diagnosed at the age of 2 with Ewing sarcoma. It's pretty much cancer in the temporal bone, located on my left temporal bone, which is the reason why I wear hats.
The highest quality, it looks like we're going to get 7,000 photos because this is a 16 megapixel camera.
So I was a junior in high school. I was 16 years old, and I was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma, which is a tumor of the soft tissue in the body. So it was in my sinus cavity.
I was diagnosed at age 16. It's pretty much just muscle cancer. It was right here.
I am the director of the survivorship program and have been for the last 9 years. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm also a survivor. When I was 5, I had childhood leukemia.
These are the cameras that the group's going to get. Photo Voice is an opportunity for anybody or person to be able to express themselves through the art of photography and talk about the meaning behind the picture. And it's an expression of themselves. It's an expression of their experience. It's an expression of their soul.
It's taking this creative, artistic outlet of using camera and really getting behind the lens to capture your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. The whole purpose for you guys in being here is for you guys to connect and for you guys to be able to have this as your creative outlet.
When I saw it, I thought of the struggle and how there's different layers to the picture, and in the middle, there's absolutely nothing there. So it's like when you reach the bottom and you have nowhere else to go but to climb your way out of the struggle.
That one is hope, and it's actually a bag of chemo. For me, the hope it's going to work every time they would hang the bag. To me, that was just hope for everybody.
Fear for me, it was that I would be alone. I was looking for trees that would be, you know, by themselves or half dead or, you know, be so far away from a group so they look like they're alone. But since I found this program, I don't have to fear that I'm alone.
I'm one of those people that I take 50 photos to find the one that I love. And that one I took 2, and I'm like, that's what I want. That's what I want, and I was happy with it. My dad's hand is specifically on top because he was most removed from the experience. He hated coming to the hospital. When he was here, he would pace. He was like, when's the doctor coming in? Can we go now? I mean, and one, he doesn't do well with medical stuff anyway, but I think more than anything is like, here's this little girl that's like, it's bad. And he has no control over what happens, how I respond. And so he was really removed from it. So it was important to me.
So for me, the why was about connecting with others. And for me personally, it's almost like a 360-degree process. I'm a survivor. I went through all this experience years ago. Now I'm a director of a survivorship program. And then this past project, I've been a survivor again. And it is literally full circle of what's been going on with emotions, with conversations, with connections. It's been just an amazing process.
They discovered the power of their voice. Here they felt safe to share things that allow their voice to come alive.
It's really cool to see images that really, it's not words, it's images that represent our stories.
All right, so that was a quick little, I guess, idea of practice. Last week, I think I showed a medical hospital that did similar stuff too. This is really popular in medical scenarios, mostly to share with medical practitioners to be in contact with those patients from their perspective. But it has all kinds of applicability. So your photo voice comes from the social sciences, y'all, but it has applicability for students to think about their social situations, particularly if you ask them questions about, well, what are the things school could be doing better? Here's a camera, go take pictures. And they'll take pictures of like their shitty school lunch, no ramps for wheelchairs. They'll take pictures of like no time for recess. And then we can ask about how do we transform that in conversation? So it has an element of doing critical pedagogy, allowing students to be experts in their community. All right, well, for us, everybody, we're kind of running out of time. And what I want to do is get to our Instagram stuff. But since we're still on the first week, technically this is week 1. So people who were here were like on week 0.5. you get a freebie. We'll actually do the Instagram stuff next week because I think we get a little bit more practice. So if you didn't get the 4 up, what I'm going to ask you to do is add 4 more to wherever you are. And my hope is that at the very end, you'll have, well, either 12 or 16, and maybe it'll be photographs that you might be able to use for a future project where you can start thinking about a photo voice project of your own. And that way you have accompanying photographs to work with the stuff. The only caveat I would say is the best way I can tell you is think about your communities, think about ways that you can articulate something that is unique to you and your social identity, that something that makes you unique, but also understanding it makes you like a lot of other people too. Whether what that's something has to do with where you're from, your race, your class, your gender, the combination of all of those above, where you're from, if it's an immigrant story, a migration story, a refugee story, for example. I think her name was Anna. She was here last time. Was that her name, Lauren? She had some really awesome stuff about a project about the laundromat as a place to build community for Latina immigrants. And I'm like, damn, that's gonna be a badass book. Just watch out with that one, y'all. So it's kind of like an idea. Hopefully it'll get you to start thinking about your social identity. So thinking about yourself as kind of like poet sociologists in this way, especially stuff thinking about inequality and your experiences of inequality on an everyday basis that we all encounter. So any questions about that, y'all? What y'all think about that video? It's kind of a heart tugger, right? Yeah, it's got those moments. I think it was when that guy was like, when you're a tree by yourself. And I was like, oh, bro. Let me share that video with you really quick so you have that link. I was going to share with you a couple others. There were some that were done by high school students. They were made into slideshows. So the students also selected music and they did slideshows and they did overlay of their voices as poetry. These are what I do with some of my students at undergrad at St. John's. What's kind of cool too, have y'all heard this book called The Poetics? Acevedo. So it's a novel in verse for young adults, works really well for 18-year-olds, written in spoken verse or spoken word style verse, tells a story of a Dominican young woman coming of age, her religious identity, her sexual identity, and also she's turning into a poet, the spoken word club. And it's, as I said, written a novel in verse. So it's a really cool exercise I do with my students to write a coming of age story in 10 poems, usually somewhat based on them in the third person. And I've been asking them to incorporate photography. So it's been kind of fun because we also use Instagram in my class too. So always fun stuff you can think about, like narrative poetry. I feel like a lot of times students are, even though they say they don't like poetry, they all listen to music. You know, it's the thing. And so trying to get them to see the musicality of language, I think is a project where, you know, when we're young, we love to play with language and words, and for whatever happens, teachers teach us to not have so much fun. And, you know, some teachers, the bad ones. Anyway, any questions about this, y'all? I know I'm like rambling on. I'm kind of weird right now. So let me share what I was telling you about that Grenfell Tower thing. All right, because now you're like, what the hell is all that about? Okay, so this, y'all listen to podcasts. I hope you do. If you don't, you should. I don't own TV, so all I do is listen to podcasts. So this one's from the BBC, and the link. And actually, why don't I just do the share screen thing one more time, because we'll be listening to a little bit of this for a few minutes before we take off. This guy, I think, is the modern Shakespeare. I say that, I don't even mean that lightly. Oh man. So he's from that area, that tower, and that, like, basically an immigrant neighborhood. And I'm just going to play a little bit of this. We have about a few more minutes just so you can hear what I'm talking about. We're talking about narratives and verse, but also in this one is a kind of documentary poetics. So let's check it out. It's called Have You Heard George's Podcast, Chapter 1, Episode 3, A Grenfell Story.
Hello and welcome to Episode 3 of Have You Heard George's Podcast. The next 25 minutes contains some strong material, so be warned. Come, let's get into it.
Miss, probability trees ain't relevant to my life plan.
About life plan, you're just trying to marry a rich white man.
Actually, I'm going to employ myself, then retire when I'm 30 and enjoy my wealth.
Okay, everyone, eyes on the board
How are you
now.
going to retire when you're 30, B?
I'll let you know when I'm hiring. You can work for me.
Come on, Savannah.
I'm going to set up a laundry business. It's going to wash the man dem's clothes and their dough. You get me?
Savannah, enough.
So, miss, I'm just saying I got plans to be wealthy, and I don't see how this lesson's going to actually help me.
So let me get this straight, Savannah. Your whole plan is to launder dirty money for a roadman.
Nah, not for a road man, for the whole gang.
Come on. But you don't think you need to pay attention in maths, though?
Miss, this is probability. That's no, just no.
So you plan to run a business handling cash without a basic understanding of maths?
But miss, my business is about helping guys stop doing crime and start doing positivity. What's that got to do with probability?
Savannah, if you let me teach the
Miss, do you know what it is? Everyone's got their lane. Do you know what I'm saying?
Tell us, Savannah.
Like, I hustle. I don't need no class. But obviously you teach, so it will look bad on you if we don't pass.
Savannah, I'm not having
miss.
this conversation.
No, listen to her, miss.
Okay, I get it. Maths is like ideas and theories and that. But my business, yeah, this is for real.
I'm not being funny, but business isn't your field.
Ooh, is he gonna have that?
Savannah, where's your pen?
I forgot my pen, miss.
Can someone lend Savannah a pen, please?
Savannah, there you go, babe.
Thank you.
Write down what I'm about to say. See, Savannah, given that 50% of new companies in London cease to function past the first 3 years, write this down.
I'm writing, miss.
Cease to function past the first 3 years, to me, the importance of this work seems clear. And you said you wanted to retire by 30?
Yeah.
Okay, well, annual growth of 20% in the first 3 years only happens to 6.6% of startups in the city, actually. And given that you plan to retire by 30, your company will have to grow pretty rapidly. In fact, you'll need a turnover of at least £1 million a year. Is that sounding fair? You hearing me loud and clear?
Yeah, that's me. Come on.
Yeah?
What you mean?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
$1 million.
less than 3%, write this down.
I'm writing.
Less than 3% of new less than 3% of new businesses do those kind of numbers, and many of them rely on private funders. Now I can tell you this because you guys are grown. Companies owned by Africans like you, Savannah, are 4 times more likely than ones owned by white people to be denied a loan. But when you're self-employed, obviously you ride alone. So it's up to you to decide if you're down for the ride or not. But to answer your question, Savannah, what's probability got to do with your business? Actually, quite a lot.
But miss, I wasn't even trying to...
The 3 biggest challenges to Africans and women who have businesses are access to finances, choosing to move into saturated markets, and straight up mismanagement. So if all your money is coming from gangbangers and crooks, and you're running a laundry service as bad as it looks, you're going to need a lot of math skills to balance the books. And I've already mentioned the strain on business that mismanagement puts. So you're going to need qualified staff, but your business partners aren't on the right path. Let's say for every year they spend in the streets, their chances of ending deceased or with a sentence at least have gone up by half, okay? So what's the probability your business will last, given that you're taking on such a difficult task in which your criminal past is a prominent feature?
Like that, yeah.
Miss, if I was smart enough to answer that question, I'd do more with my life than becoming a teacher.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and stop that one there. So I told you, good podcast, y'all. I highly recommend it. Really, really cool, entertaining. That one tells the whole story of that tower by somebody in that tower, African immigrants in London. Brings in the social stuff, which I think is really important. But you hear the verse, anyways. Marianne, you could appreciate that. Anyway, y'all, so it's about time to get out of here. Come back next week. We'll continue. If you got 4 more of your photo voice, basically what I'm asking y'all to do is think about a photograph that's somewhat meaningful to you, that is expressive to you, and do a little bit of free writing that's poetic in nature. And then we're going to use those photographs to hopefully add on to what you do. Hopefully, as a group, we'll try to give you some extra words that you may be able to weave into your stuff. So that's kind of like our gift, a little bit of writing together next time. So you come up with the first part, we'll add a little bit more to it, and then see we do a little bit of stuff with narrative. And then by the 3rd week, we'll have like kind of like a little recap and talk a little bit more about our projects together. Hopefully we'll get a few more people here next time, but we'll just kind of go with what we got. So, and any questions for me, y'all?
I just want to make sure I understood. So for the next time, we were gonna practice writing based on pictures that we've taken?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
ideally your own. Now, I should point out there are some other things about ethics in terms of like people in your photographs and stuff like that. We'll probably talk a bit more about that next time, but really right now, as you're all still learning, let's just take out some photographs and hopefully use that as be inspiration for you to write about it. And really that's kind of what we're working on. And then the best part is once you share your photographs with us, then we give you hopefully a little bit more inspiration to go back and continue to write about it. So good question there. So yeah, just 4 more. And that way we have a little bit of an archive we can work with next time for sure. We'll hopefully have a few more people. So any other questions, y'all?
It's basically the same as last time.
Yeah, basically, yeah, Laura, basically last time that class didn't count because there was like some confusion for stuff. So you're like on the 2nd class, but we're kind of just keep going. So just keep doing the badass stuff y'all doing, in other words. And then, well, hopefully whatever you did today, you might be able to work on. Maybe you can continue working whatever you started today too, hopefully. So, and if you have any questions, y'all, let me give me my email again. So I have a couple emails, but if y'all hit me up on this one, it might be easier. Or you can send me a private message a direct message on Instagram too. That's fine. Either way, I'll get that. All right, y'all. So same time next week. I'll look forward to seeing y'all again. Good luck. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And I have to end the recording actually.